Hi, I'm Cameron Randall. I serve as canon to the ordinary in our diocese and also as vicar of St. Thomas Episcopal Church in Garden City. I appreciate you spending time today as we continue our series presented by the Diocese on the concept of resurrection during this Lenten season. For many of us who hope to follow the way of Jesus as Christ, the word resurrection is a surprisingly complex component in our faith journeys. For those of us who particularly grew up in a church environment, the concept of Jesus as one having been resurrected was especially prominent at Easter, of course, but was seldom referenced during other times of the year. Like many Episcopalians, I came to our church as a young adult from another Christian tradition. My original faith background celebrated Easter, but it did so as one standalone Sunday, a single day out of the entire year, with an emphasis not much more than Groundhog Day or Sadie Hawkins Day. Part of the wonder that accompanied my discovery eventually of the Episcopal Church stemmed from the extended liturgical season of Easter and the opportunity it afforded me for the first time ever to dig deeper into the meaning of resurrection, to try to unpack and process the enormity of the notion that death itself had already been defeated by the experience of Jesus following his crucifixion. When we ask ourselves the question, what does resurrection mean to me as an individual? The difficulty for many of us has to do with the almost subconscious idea that resurrection is an aberration. It's a disruption of existential normalcy, but it's one that happens to someone else and not to us. In the Christian faith, it's easy to think of resurrection as a phenomenon experienced by, but also very much confined to Jesus. It's the one portion of his resume or CV which supersedes all other accomplishments and which no other job applicants can ever begin to match. Fortunately, the author of the New Testament book of Hebrews has something intriguing to say about what resurrection means to us as individuals. During this most recent liturgical season of Epiphany, just passed, many of our epistle readings came from the book of Hebrews. For the author of Hebrews, resurrection was actually the motivation for the incarnation of Christ. It was the very reason Christ came to us in human form. There's a beautiful scripture in Hebrews which says that this happened so that through death he might destroy the one who has the power of death, that is the devil, and free those who all their lives were held in slavery by the fear of death. That beautiful quote is from Hebrews, the 2nd chapter, verse 14. So the personal relevance to us then is profound. This scripture from Hebrews tells us that Christ's mission on earth was motivated by the desire to vanquish death and to liberate every human being from our subservience to and our imprisonment by the fear of death. Resurrection, in turn, was both the vehicle for accomplishing that divine objective and the manifestation of the accomplishment itself. By definition, resurrection is not something that happens only to someone else. It is something that happened to someone else, specifically so that it could also happen to each of us as individuals. St. Paul corroborates this understanding of resurrection, and he expounds on it a bit in his first letter to the Corinthians in chapter 15. Paul believed that the resurrection of Jesus was a miraculous event that transformed the mortal body of Jesus into an imperishable new form. But Paul also believed that when we acknowledge, when we embrace, and when we rely upon the resurrection of Jesus in our own hearts, we too will become imperishable after death. We too will rise again, each of us as individuals, just as Jesus was resurrected. Now that hardly sounds like something that happens only to someone else 2,000 years ago in human history. Paul went on to say that because we have the promise of our own personal resurrection through our belief in the original resurrection of Jesus, we are empowered to live lives of faith, lives of hope, lives premised on love during our time on this earth. I'll tell you that long before I became an Episcopal priest, I was a manager of recording artists and later a record company executive. In 1998, at Disney's Hollywood Records, I signed an artist named Chris Perez, who had been the husband and the guitarist for slain Tejano star Selena Quintanilla Perez. I had worked with Selena when I was living in Nashville and then later in Austin, Texas. In the months following Selena's tragic death, her husband Chris came to me seeking his own record deal. He was forming a new band, writing and recording new material as a part of his grieving process. In 1999, a year later, those songs were released, some in English and some in Spanish. And the album was entitled Resurrection. In 1999, that album, Resurrection, won a Grammy as Best Rock and Espanol Record. It was a reflection, an encapsulation, if you will, of Chris's severe loss risen again into a new form. It was a beautiful tribute to Selena and a signal to Chris that he was commissioned to move on with his life, cherishing her memory, of course, but accepting God's gift of a new chapter in his own life. So what does resurrection then mean to me as an individual? It's the mystical and inexplicable central core reality of our faith. It's the ultimate miracle, and the one from whom so many millions of other miracles are set in motion. If Christ is resurrected from the dead, and if I've invested myself in his resurrection, then I too will experience the miracle of resurrection. If that reality doesn't infuse our lives with hope and joy and purpose, it's difficult to imagine what would. During this Lenten period of personal reflection, and in the extended liturgical season of Easter that will follow, I hope you'll revisit the significance of resurrection in your own life. I hope you'll explore this elusive and confounding concept in ways you haven't done before. And I hope you'll be rewarded with a deeply personal sense of renewal and recommitment, of reimagining and repurposing. And I hope you'll experience a new level and a new depth of passion and purpose in every aspect of your life. Thanks for joining me today.